Welcome into the Blurred Wire, everybody. It is your host, King Whale, and we are talking about one of the latest movies that came out in theaters that kicked off the summer. You probably have already seen it by the time of listening to this. If you haven't, make sure you do. Oh, Ty's cat's giving us a little hello, everybody. You can't really see it from that end, but because it doesn't make any noise, so it won't switch to it. But so but anyway, we are talking about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. The cat must have thought that we were talking about it, but
Kingdom of the
no.
Planet of the Cats, perhaps.
Okay, you can see it now. Yeah, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, not quite. But maybe they'll get their, Kingdom of the Planet of the Cats movie. We just got to recover from the Idris Elba Cats movie with Taylor Swift. Like that's gonna take some time to wear off before we can do another Cats movie.
Sure, not furry people. We need their own cats. Maybe if I
Yeah, their
try
own
to
cats.
cure Alzheimer's,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
that's what's going to end up happening.
Yeah. But how are you doing? How have you been? Welcome back on the pod. What's been going on?
Thank, thank you for having me. I'll tell you what's been going on. Watching two-thirds of movies and not finishing them.
Okay, I feel like we got to explain this. Okay, so like I went to the theater on Tuesday and got to watch the full movie. And you went on Monday, right?
No, I went Tuesday morning. I ended up going
Oh,
Tuesday
Tuesday morning.
morning.
Yeah, the same day. So yeah, what exactly what happened there?
So we are separated by geography. We live in very different states far
Mm-hmm.
away. I am still in a very rainy, blustery state, and
Blustery.
I live close to this theater. I went to nice morning showing of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I get about two-thirds into the movie, and then a severe thunderstorm turns off all the power, and even the backup generator for the theater shorts out. It's pitch black for about 10 minutes, and when I asked to hear if there's any word if they'll be able to fix it, they say no, and I go home. So I
Right.
did not get to see all of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
And wasn't it like they were like, even if we get the power back on, we can't just like put you back in where you were, like you would with the
Oh,
DVR?
yeah, they couldn't just because it's film. Like they couldn't just keep it right where it would. They said they had their only option was to just restart it. And so my choice at that point, I was probably like an hour 45 into this like 2.5 hour movie. And so my option was to either wait another hour or so for the power to come back on and then watch the whole 2.5 hour movie again, taking up like my entire morning, afternoon, and partial evening, or I just go home. And I took the latter option because as much as I was enjoying it up to that part, there was no way I had the time or really the energy to sit through 5 hours of Ape.
Yeah, after seeing it myself, I completely concur, and I would have done the exact same thing because like the part and when you described it to me, you said like two-thirds, and then after the movie, I was like, okay, exactly which part was it? And
Mhm.
you literally got cut off right before the most interesting part of the entire movie, like the entire climax, the entire reason we were there. And I'm like, it was a good movie, but it definitely takes its time. And
Yeah.
like if it was me, I would not have sat through that again. I would have been mad. At least you got a refund and everything, right? Like they didn't.
I have a free movie voucher, so I will go back to either see it or something else at another
Yeah.
time.
I'm like, it's gonna be on streaming eventually. I think the problem is like the second half is was really good, but it's almost like it's hard to sit through the first half again. Like I could do it, but not in a theater, I don't think. But let's talk
Yeah,
about it because it was still a good movie. What did
it
you
was still
enjoy from the movie?
so it definitely felt very slowly paced. We are generations past where we left off with War of the
Hmm.
Planet of the Apes. We have a whole new branch of characters. Caesar at this point has devolved into like a really interesting, almost like Christ allegory.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
religious figure that unintentionally would just birthed from his actions. And like they do some like surprisingly interesting like world building around it. even to, like the point where the little window from the very first rise of the Planet of the Apes, the window that Caesar looked out to
Uh-huh.
became the symbol, eventually becomes like a cross, you
Right.
know, for
It's
Catholicism,
crazy.
like this religious symbol of the this one pane, which makes me laugh because I'm thinking, what if that window was like a stained glass window? Like, what if it was just a normal, like, square rectangular?
If it
Would we
didn't have
have,
anything interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
what would it be? But there's a lot of slow paced walking around the forest in the
Oh
first
yeah.
half of the movie.
I think I probably would have called this Journey of the Planet of the Apes
Ooh.
because it's not really a kingdom. We
Hmm.
just kind of get the journey aspect.
Oh, you think they're saving Journey for one of the sequels? Journey to the Planet of the Apes?
It's probably pretty accurate, but it's just funny because it's like the with all of the movies, what it's titled isn't exactly what happens.
Yeah,
Like we
the
talked
titles
about
have
that
all been
before.
very misleading
The
at this
titles don't
point.
exactly, they just kind of draw you in, and then it's like,
Hmm.
well, was this really a dawn? Was this really like a war? Was this really a kingdom? Like there was a kingdom, but as Ty mentioned, you go the entire like two-thirds through the movie before you even see it. It starts with just a clan. And
Hmm.
so the movie is it's very interesting to see the way that apes have broken off into different factions, which is
Hmm.
something I didn't expect because, Caesar kept everything very together.
Hmm.
And so it makes sense that eventually they're broken off. And I almost kind of wanted to get because again, we got a lot of world building, a lot of stunning shots of like, old buildings covered in grass. It's almost like Earth
Yes.
like retook. It was really cool to see like nature like overtake like what humans have done because there are no humans around. So it was
Yes.
kind of cool to see that. Like I'm looking out at the city right now where I record and I'm literally just imagining like grass, leaves, everything covering all through it.
Yes.
Um so that was cool. I
A
only
greatly underused aesthetic for
Yeah.
post-apocalyptic worlds. Very
Yeah.
cool.
I just feel like this movie, it left me with a lot of, for as slow as it was for the first two-thirds, it did leave me with a lot of like unanswered questions, like things
Hmm.
I would have wished that they went into and we got a little more on. Like what I was just mentioning, why did the apes split up into different clans? Did people just leave? Was there some kind of like civil war that broke out? Something like that, because we're just kind of thrust into the world of this clan. But again, from people that know, it's almost better if you don't see War of the Planet of the Apes because then you won't know that like at one time all the apes were together. And again, you can
Hmm.
just assume that the apes broke off into different clans the same way humans broke off into different clans. Like it's just kind of
Hmm.
something that happens. But again, it feels like that's something I would have wanted to know compared to like, oh wow, here's another green building. Oh, here's another green building. Oh, the monkey is still riding the horse. The monkey
Yeah.
is still riding the horse. He's still riding the horse.
Yeah, I get that for like a movie that seemed so focused on world building that feels like a really big thing to leave unanswered. Like
Hmm.
in it, like we get enough to know that like a religion revolved around Caesar, that apes
Right.
developed a religion and we don't know where they all came from.
That's Ty's cat Pumpkin for
That's
anybody watching.
yeah, you'll probably see lots of him today.
He's in a good mood. Maybe he wants
He's
to offer his 2 cents.
what did you think, Pumpkin? Was it scary? All the apes? Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. If you're
Yeah.
listening, this is your sign to hop over on YouTube and watch these podcasts because it's a lot more fun when you get to actually see what's happening.
True. You get twice the amount of cat action on the video
Twice.
version.
You
Twice.
you can't just get that. Like
You don't get that anywhere. That's not
you don't
free
get that
these days.
anywhere. So yeah, so we get a lot of and it deals with a lot of complex themes. And that's why to me it's like if you really wanted to like like if I was just going to do like a whole bunch of world building and not really have like a complex thing going on, I probably
Hmm.
would have called it Journey and just made it all about the journey. I might have
Hmm.
even done like a completely different like plot climax towards the end because,
Mhm.
like I said, especially when we get introduced to May's character or Nova's character, as they
Mhm.
call her, even though her real name is
May.
May.
May, yes.
Yeah. And even though she can talk and everything, like I would have liked to see, because from what we again understand, the humans devolved.
Mhm.
And I would love to see like how she came up, how she grew up with these humans that talked, what happened to them all. Even just a throwaway, not even a throwaway scene, like it would have been very, very important to see that because number one, I mean, she still would have had to explain it to Caesar probably, but she wouldn't have had to explain it as in much detail because it wouldn't have been like there's exposition to other characters that you know is actually for the audience so we can understand what's going on. But
Mhm.
when you show us that, you don't have to explain it as much. You can kind of just like mention it. So if we had seen what happened to her, again, I don't want to say that like this movie could have used more humans because that's what made the first trilogy so good because they didn't focus on the humans.
Mhm.
But this one felt like I feel like I understand a lot of what happened with the apes, and I feel like I need to know a little bit more about what Nova's talking about. Like, how did they develop the ability to speak again? Because from what we understood, any human that I guess some humans just weren't affected by the disease at all. But from War of the Planet of the Apes, it seemed like any human that didn't die from the disease was going to devolve into a more primitive version. Now,
Right.
unless only a few of them survived and were able to pass that down, but again, we don't really know. And I guess if you hadn't seen War of the Planet of the Apes, you wouldn't really have these questions. So it's almost like don't watch the first
Don't watch
trilogy.
it. Yeah, it's weird because for a movie that I think humans probably spend less screen time in this movie than they did in the previous ones, it
For sure.
feels like they're a little more integral. like
Yes.
like May's like the question around humans, everything with humans before felt very simplistic, like there wasn't a mystery to
Uh-huh.
unsolve because it's just people in that situation.
Yeah.
In Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, we don't need a lot of exposition for like how did humans like survive because it's rather understood basic human needs of like water, food, shelter, power,
Right.
these things, and their desire to have them because we are humans watching this movie. So having, but now that we have this mystery of wait, aren't all humans supposed to be these primitive creatures? How can they talk? How are we getting?
I'm sorry, guys. Pumpkin's just like reaching up in his shirt, just like
Yeah,
tucking it down.
he
Uh,
does.
I
He's
was trying to keep it straight.
what he's trying to do is he's trying to pull me down so that he can lick my face, but I
Oh,
don't want him to do that right now, so I'm just
just
holding him at bay.
just not yet. Just not yet.
Just not yet.
I'm gonna have to put a note like if you love cats, you will love this video, even though it
Please
has nothing to
watch.
do with them. I will put it
We
like
are
a little
cat
footnote.
lovers in this house.
Uh-huh.
But
But
yeah, like there's more of a
yeah.
mystery around like the people and what happened to them. And
Hmm.
I don't know, I don't get the appeal of that. I'm here to watch apes build a civilization and work with apes. All of like the scenes with Caesar of of uh of Caesar with Noah, those were the
Proximus
most
Caesar? Yeah.
interesting.
Hmm.
Those were the most interesting because it's like it's ape politics. That's what I'm here
Yeah.
for. I'm not here for ape and human existence.
Yeah. So to me, it's like with that choice, because he did leave, because again, the whole plot of the movie, major spoilers. There were spoilers already if you have got this far, but definitely spoilers right here. Because the plot of the movie is I keep saying Julius Caesar. Proximus Caesar is trying to break into this vault that apparently has all this human technology and human goods in it, right?
Mhm.
And Nova also knows about the vault and
Mhm.
knows that like when the human governments went underground, everything was being destroyed. They stored all the stuff in here. And again,
Mhm.
that's something that like I like because that's a plot point. Like I want to see that. Like I kind of want to understand more about that, and we don't really get that.
Right.
Also, like how does Julius know? what all this human technology is. Like, I guess, did William Macy's character tell him what's in here and that he could use it? Because like
Yeah,
also the way Nova is talking, like she's talking like she used to live when the humans dominated Earth. Like she used to be. So it's like I know all of this is passed down in stories from like her generations, but she's talking like I lived 300 years ago and I know what this was and how important it is. So it doesn't really hit us or make as much sense that like she knows so much about it and how vital it is unless we see her being told and like being trained and be like, hey, we got to go get this eventually so we can take back the Earth. Some kind of like survival thing on that regard.
right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the focus would work better if it was more on the apes and like because to me honestly if without all of like the intrigue of her trying to get the disc to try to restore humans back to like their place before it feels unnecessary unless they're building towards something greater with a bigger human ape conflict again, which to me felt like that's what we had the last time. And like I can picture a world where that's interesting, but I guess I was hoping more for it to be okay, good. We got the human chapter done with. Now we can just have the
Oh,
ape.
now it's ape on. So you
Now
weren't
it's ape
expecting
time.
humans to really, because yeah, they did play an integral part of this movie because the whole point is to get human stuff.
And you know what? And like closer to like the halfway or before the halfway point where Noah and May and their companion, who I'm forgetting his name, the one who
Oh, the one with
remind
the
like
religious guy.
yeah, who's
Yeah,
like more essentially this movie's Maurice, the big orangutan.
yeah, yeah.
Um, when they're traveling and they see a herd of primitive people, that scene was great. I loved seeing it because of this archetypal switch
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that nobody understands how we got to this point. They're all just trying to make sense of these ancient artifacts and relics. I don't know. That was really fun to watch and see. It
And I
was
thought it
really
was cool
cool.
too. Yeah.
And I wished the human involvement stayed to that level. Like, oh yeah, there's people, there's a herd of people out there.
Yeah. Yeah, because now it
That's
does
it.
feel like we're building up to another human ape conflict because while this movie was kind of like ape on ape, essentially,
Hmm.
which was kind of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, but um only like kind of like as a catalyst because it was kind of between Caesar and Koba.
Hmm.
In this one, because towards the end of the movie, so basically in this bunker, Caesar is really mad. I mean, not Caesar. Noah is really mad at Caesar for enslaving all these other clans to help them take down this wall.
Hmm.
So Noah sneaks in with Nova to empty out this clan, to empty out this bunker and get all the stuff. And Noah's plan is to destroy it with water because there's a whole dam blocking the bunker from the water. And Nova's plan is to get what she needs that's supposed to be able to teach the humans that don't know how to talk. And
Hmm.
again, didn't really get a lot of explanation on that other than like this is what it does. And it's like, okay, but why and how
Hmm.
and what is it? And how did you know it was there? How did the human governments like know that they were going to devolve 3,300 years ago and left a device that would allow them to like I need to know and see all that.
Right.
So
Yeah, because
at
without
that
explanation, it's just kind of a MacGuffin. It's like,
exactly.
oh, I have this magical artifact that can restore human speech.
It's like, yeah,
Okay,
this just works because I said
that just
so.
works. What?
Yeah. It's like I need to know. And
Yeah,
so
because before we had an entire movie dedicated to the idea of getting apes intelligent with a disease
right.
for Alzheimer's that ended up the long-term effects of which, passed down through childbirth, end up giving these apes intelligent. There's a whole movie dedicated to the how of we get there. And
Yep.
here, a similar situation, and we just have magical artifact provides connection.
And it's like to me, and it's like you still had enough time to do it just based upon the plot that you chose because throughout the movie, basically at the beginning, Noah's clan is attacked by these apes, and they're all stolen and taken to Proximus Caesar's lair. But
Mhm.
Noah escapes. And his whole point of the journey is like he's going to go find them and save them. So along the journey, he meets Nova and meets this orangutan. But throughout the journey, they eventually get captured and brought to Proximus Caesar. So we have like a 40 plus hour, probably long journey where they're going to the same place that they get captured and brought to. It's
Right.
like it feels like taking a train and driving somewhere at the same place anyway. It's like the
Hmm.
plot is going towards the same point, and instead of journeying there themselves, they get captured and taken to the exact place that they wanted to go. And it's like you could have just had him be captured at the beginning and had the religious ape be captured along with Nova, and then have them all meet in Julius Caesar's encampment, and then we would have seen the kingdom. Probably wouldn't have got as much world building, which would have been hard. You would have had to make a decision, but then we could have got a little bit more explanation on all this stuff that's just kind of thrown at us at the point where your movie theater lights went out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what did you think, to try to bring it back to the apes? What did you think of Noah in comparison to Caesar as a lead role ape? Like, does he feel like he's got a lot of like emotional depth and room to grow like Caesar did?
He does. I think with Wes Ball and the way he did this movie, I think this movie doesn't lend itself to a main character with the plot. Like
Hmm.
Caesar in every single movie, the plot revolves completely around him. If you
Yeah.
remove him, there's no plot.
Hmm.
Every single thing that affects him, everything we need to know, all comes through him. In
Hmm.
this movie, Noah is a character that things are just kind of happening to. You know what I mean? Like, Noah
Yeah.
didn't have anything to do with the bunker being there. He doesn't have anything to do with why they want to get into it. He doesn't have anything, like, he doesn't have a reason why the apes want to get into it, nor does he have a
Hmm.
reason why Nova wants to get into it. He just happens to be there. He just happens to be one of the clans that gets attacked.
Yeah.
So in that way, he's kind of thrust into the spotlight. You see what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Caesar is the spotlight.
Sure.
Noah is just kind of thrust and put into the spotlight, and I think it works. Like I think he's a good character, but again, I think from Wes Ball's perspective, I think you can tell he's working really hard to make Noah the main character. We're spending a
Hmm.
lot of time with Noah, but that's not really necessary to the story. Like it feels like we need to get to know Noah, but we you don't really need to get to know Noah this much in order
Hmm.
to understand the story because you sacrifice a lot of other story things while you spend all this time trying to understand who Noah is. And I feel like you kind of get who he is even just like after the first opening scene. I mean, do you feel like his character
Yeah,
kind of
that
got
opening of
deeper?
him getting the Eagles
Yeah.
did a lot for his, I think, his character. A good,
Yeah.
just like a quick introduction as to who he is without needing to explain through dialogue.
Right. And I didn't see the next step of his character growth really until the very end where he becomes a leader, trying to get all the other apes out. Like I feel like we kind of see him like transform into more of the leader. Um, which again, I feel like would have been more impactful if he had spent the time like in War of the Planet of the Apes for most of the film, Caesar is in that camp. And we already know he's a leader, but he's
Yeah.
in the camp with the other apes suffering. And I'm
Hmm.
like, I feel like we still could have got that character growth with Noah in the camp with the other apes, seeing him like kind of transform into the leader. Because I should also preface his father dies at the very beginning. So someone's
Hmm.
kind of got to step up and take his place. And I like it because it's not like automatically like, okay, well, you're the kid's son. Like that stereotype, not only stereotypes, how kingdoms used to work, where if your father dies, you're next up and you have to become the leader. It seems like their society didn't necessarily run like that. So it just kind of happened naturally. Like Noah just became the leader and took charge.
Yeah.
Um, And I feel like a lot of that, and some of it was based upon like what he saw with Proximus Caesar, because again, in the clan, Proximus Caesar, like compared to their clan at the very beginning, it seemed
Mhm.
like he ruled with a very like the father was like in charge with like a very light fist. Like they had elders and they had a group and they had like, traditions and customs, but it seemed like everyone just kind of did their own like just did whatever needed to be done. They didn't really have like a set like hierarchy leader, I am the end all say all. Where Proximus Caesar,
Right.
like obviously he used his leadership in a poor way, but he was obviously a leader. He got people to do stuff and to follow him. Um,
Mhm.
and so I think it was kind of interesting because it feels like Noah kind of adopted some of those traits, but like without like the dictatorshipness. Because even at the end of the film, you can still tell that like Noah is very obviously the leader of this clan now, which
Yeah,
I know
I
you don't
got the
know anything about because you didn't.
yes. I'm agreeing with you for something I have no idea what I'm agreeing with. Um, but I think that we get two different ways in which the apes didn't live up to Caesar's necessarily like promise,
Hmm.
because we get to see like the violence of rulership from someone like Koba leads to with Proximus Caesar. But then we also get, we don't get transparency from Noah's village. The group of elders there were, they were kind of led by like superstition of you don't go into the valley because you
Yeah.
just don't go. There's a lot more, the world is a lot wider than their scope at the beginning, and I think that's a different kind of failing. It's not necessarily one that's directly violent like
Hmm.
Proximus Caesar's is, but it is also bad. It's just interesting to see how nobody kind of lived up to the initial promises led, and it feels in part from a lack of information
Yeah.
and knowledge, forgetting history.
Well, I mean, at one point, Noah did say to the other apes, like, we were lied to. I don't
Right.
know if that was after. Yeah, but yeah, he
Yeah.
said, like, we were lied to. We were not told that humans used to dominate this earth. We were just told that it's always been apes all the time. You're an ape, go catch some eagle, go get some eagle eggs. This is what you
Right.
do. They weren't really taught history compared to Proximus Caesar. Like in that regard, he was more transparent because he was like the humans used to dominate, and that's why I want all that stuff in there, and we're gonna open up that door. So
Right.
again, I don't know if all the apes like intrinsically understood that humans used to dominate the earth, but obviously Proximus Caesar did. And obviously, he wasn't really keeping it a secret because he talked about it openly.
Right.
So that's kind of a juxtaposition, of
Mhm.
like, I mean, Proximus was obviously a terrible leader, but in that way, he was honest. The other apes from the tribe were not. And so, like I said, that's
Violent and
something.
militaristic,
Yeah,
but honest.
but did I lie? Sure, I may have slaughtered apes, enslaved them, burned
Sure, I,
some.
I killed your whole family, but I was honest about it.
I will murder your family, but I will not lie. Like Thanos is like one thing I am not is a liar. Um, so it's just again, it feels like that was a theme that could have been explored. And it feels like we kind of sacrificed a lot for world building in that way.
Hmm.
So I mean, again, I think it was still a good movie. I also think the bar is set really high with the first three Planet of the Apes movies from
Hmm.
2011 to 2017. Obviously,
Hmm.
that's what I'm talking about.
Right, because there
Um,
were no Planet of the Apes movies before that.
None worth talking about.
Hmm.
Uh, um, so, because the themes in there are so complex and delved into and fleshed out, and this one felt like it had a lot of themes, but I don't know if Westball was like, I don't know, man, that's really complicated. I don't really want to explore like all of that. Let's just say some stuff is happening and we'll just go with that. Because again, you did spend like we spent 40 minutes, probably close to almost an hour of runtime of just the journey and walking and a lot of walking and talking about not really like talking but not exploring the themes, just like small talk, honestly.
Right. Yeah, but it is, I think it's a lot coming from the director of the Maze Runner trilogy and
Right. I
nothing
learned that.
else.
Yeah. So did you
That's
see The
all
Maze
he's really
Runner?
directed. I saw the first one and I really hated it.
Okay.
I really did not like any of it.
Because I saw that on some of the advertisements. It was like from the director of the Maze Runner trilogy. And I was like, is that a good thing?
Is
I
that a
don't
bad? Yeah,
I'm
that's
like, is that a flex? I don't
is
really
this a PSA to
know.
not watch the movie?
Yes. I'm like, I don't know if that's the flex that you think it is. You know what I mean? So because like you said, again, I appreciate the movie taking its time and not rushing. I just think for a plot this complex, again, you've got a device that can make the humans talk again, and Proximus Caesar is trying to get into a bunker full of underground weapons that the government, like the plot of this movie is almost more complex than all the other ones before it. And so something kind of, I think, in order for it to be a better movie to like reach the same heights of those ones, it would have had to balance that a little bit better. Either make the plot a little less complex so you can build out the world,
Mhm,
or give us enough time to really understand why everything that's happening is happening. Because, like I said, and in this movie, you could have shared, because it felt like he wanted Noah to be the main character, which is why he didn't really tell us or show us much that happened to Nova. But
mhm,
Nova probably got as much screen time as Noah, and Nova was way more essential to the plot than Noah was. Like, it's not even
mhm,
close. Nova was way more
mhm,
essential, especially towards the end. So like that should have been like a co-main character almost. Like we could have seen scenes of Nova growing up, learning the language, being told there's a bunker, being told about the governments, being told how important it is that humans regain dominance. Because again, she has all this determination, but we don't know where it comes from. It just
mhm,
seems weird and odd that she had.
mhm.
Um,
So what would you want as like a lesson learned from this movie into because they've already said that they're trying to gear up for another trilogy of
yeah.
eight movies. What would you want for the second of that trilogy to learn from Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes?
Well, I almost like because the movie is kind of gearing up towards another ape versus humans conflict,
Hmm.
which again has been done. I know what you mean. It kind of would have been nice to just see like the politics of apes, like the way obviously we have a lot of like movies about humans killing each other. It's like we could just do a whole trilogy of apes
Hmm.
killing each other like the way humans do, like, warring and all this stuff. But anyway, I think that's what I like now that you mention it, I think that's kind of what I would have liked to seen where like humans are
Yeah.
just kind of like a side character, or
Yeah.
maybe like an ape starts training humans to be part of his army. That would have been really interesting, and the humans think that like again, he just starts using humans the way that humans use animals. Like, it's part of his army. Like they can hold a spear. I'll use them to start fighting. So,
Exactly.
excuse me, 1 second. All of that could have been a little bit more interesting. One thing I really liked is because at the end, Nova faces a really intense decision because her plan is to flood this bunker full of stuff, her and Noah's plan that they're sharing together, and destroy all the stuff so Proximus Caesar can't get it. But Proximus Caesar reveals that he brought all the apes from Noah's clan in front of the bunker. So if she floods it, she's going to drown all the apes. And she doesn't care. She blows it up and floods it anyway because she's like, he can't get it. And she has this teary determination look.
Hmm.
And to me, it's like, again, I feel like I need to see, like, why are you this determined to get this stuff and watch all these apes die? Like, you gotta have something behind that. Like, either your mom died trying to get this information, or it's just been drilled into your head. Again, we're just kind of told to, like, no, just accept that she's like this and she's this determined and she's like tearfully. Like I was saying earlier, it's almost like she lived during the time while humans were dominating the earth, even though
Hmm.
obviously she hasn't. But she has the determination of someone who's not like she has the determination of like Woody Harrelson's character from War of the Planet of the Apes. But
Right.
his determination makes sense because he's one of the humans that dominated the earth. So I think in a sequel, because at that moment Noah realized he couldn't trust humans because she was willing to sacrifice the lives of all these apes just so this one ape didn't get the technology to continue dominating the planet. And he
Hmm.
also realized that, like, wow, humans did dominate the planet, and this may help them dominate the planet, and we may go back to living in cages, like the zoo book says.
Right.
Um, so I almost don't even like the fact that at the end they met, because at the end Nova comes to say goodbye to Noah. And like it's kind of like it's a tense moment, but it's not like an angry moment. And I feel like I would have loved to see Noah like turn on humans from that point. Maybe not necessarily lead an all-out attack against them, but basically like that could have been the catalyst in Noah's mind that says all humans are the enemy. If I see one, they're dead on sight because of what
Hmm.
she did to my clan. Because we see most of them escape, but some of them did die because not all the apes could swim. It was a lot of water. Some of them had to drown. Like they did die. And that was a human who killed them. Nova did kill them, essentially.
Hmm.
And so seeing that would have been really interesting to see him, because again, he's painted as a protagonist, and to see him develop, like, I almost wish that would have created like a hate for humans that kind of comes into effect in the next film. Um, but I don't really think that's what we're getting based upon their interaction. He just kind of has like a distrust, like, leave me alone. I don't want anything to do with you guys because I don't trust you. So
Hmm.
like I said, I think I would have liked to see a little bit more into, like, because it feels like we're kind of slowly building up those themes again.
Hmm.
Um, and we did slowly build them up. And like, because like one thing is, I don't know, did the clan? I don't think they necessarily believed in Caesar, or I don't think they believed in Caesar the way the religious zealots were.
They didn't know about Caesar.
They didn't know about Caesar at all. Okay, that's what I thought. Um, because even the religious zealot guy who like worships Caesar essentially was like Caesar, like he has a fondness for humans because he knows Caesar was raised by humans.
Hmm.
And but if you told that to the apes from the Eagle clan, they would have been like, ew, raised by humans is gross. It's like if you
Hmm.
told a human that like Jesus was raised by monkeys, like we would all be like, what? Like, what are you talking about? So yeah, it's like in that way, I think they had some interesting things. I'll be interested to see where they go with the sequel. Like I said, I still liked it. I feel like it sounds like I'm like
Hmm.
harping on it a lot. Um, but it's just still had a lot of great themes. I think you just see so much potential, especially in a movie like this. And it had a lot of great themes. I just wish Westball did a little bit more with them. But then again, he is the Maze Runner trilogy director. So
Yeah, I really enjoyed what I saw. I want to see I want to see more of a focus on it being a journey. Like the next goal, make it to where Noah has to travel from like the west coast to the east coast of the US and give me a travel movie because
journey.
he's very smart, he's scrappy, he's adventurous, and there's a lot that I think would be interesting to see in that kind of journey movie
Oh yeah, I would
with
love to
Noah
see.
as a protagonist. I think
Yeah.
we got the leader trilogy with Caesar. I think you can do something different with Noah because when you
Hmm.
just try to make him another Caesar, it doesn't feel like, why does every ape protagonist have to be reckoning with the question of apes and humans? Can we live together? Can we coexist? I think that's been done to death a bit. Give us something new
Hmm.
to do with this setting because I think there is a lot of potential, and I don't think Wes scratched the surface a little bit with, I think, some of the world building, because I think I genuinely find it very interesting that, apes with intelligence are seeing, an old airport and thinking it's where humans were raised and kept in captivity to play around with. I think
Right.
that's a genuinely interesting take, and I would like to see more of that. But the more you introduce humans as a pivotal antagonist, that it's so, I don't know. I don't think this is the movie to make an interesting commentary on it. I think it's just let's just have some fun.
Yeah,
That's what I say with this setting.
I think like, and I think you're right. Like this movie, had he adjusted the plot a little bit, again, it's hard to imagine like one monkey doing a cross country trip with a horse.
Hmm.
But imagine how cool, like, you know how in Avatar, how they're exploring, like, there's a whole water Navi, and now they're gonna have like a fire Navi in the next movie, and like these Navi are from the trees. It's like, imagine how cool it would have been if like this whole movie was just the journey, and we saw Noah going from this clan to that clan, seeing what they believed in. Because, like, for this clan, eagles were very important. Maybe something
Hmm.
else was very important, or something like that. And we kind of
Yes.
could have got something similar to that if it was like if this movie had just been all about the kingdom that Proximus Caesar was trying to set up, and like we had started with him getting captured, and like you said, with the next movie, maybe he's, I mean, I wouldn't want to say like recruiting for a war against humans, but something where he can journey throughout the entire world and
Hmm.
see all the different clans of apes, and how apes, like, what their different, what each different society is doing and chooses to, like, one that lives in the mountains, one that lives in the desert area, one that lives, so that I agree with you. That journey aspect would have been
Hmm.
very interesting, especially if that's what I was expecting. Now, would I sit through it through the whole theater? I don't know. Maybe I would have been happy if the power went out, because then I could have got to see a more interesting movie, like a little more gripping. But I think it would have felt more cohesive. It felt like he wanted to do Journey and Kingdom of the Apes. And it's
Hmm.
like you kind of sacrifice parts from both when you're trying to do both.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think that there's plenty of room to grow. And
Mhm.
I hope that the focus shifts a bit.
So I guess two questions to kind of wrap it up. The first one, so Rise of the Planet of the Apes was not directed by Matt Reeves. He was brought in for Dawn, and then he did War. So do you think that Wes Ball, who directed the Maze Runner trilogy, do you think that he's going to potentially return for the second? Because there's going to be a sequel after this. Do you think that he's going to return as director?
I'd be okay with it if he did.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think he did a bad job here. I just didn't necessarily like the direction they chose.
Yeah, what
Like
they chose to do
like
with it.
what I saw, nothing, none of it was bad. It's just, it's a creative choice that I just
Yeah.
don't necessarily vibe with.
And
But
again, yeah.
I think this movie was really good, even the pacing aside. Maybe trim the runtime down by like half an hour. Maybe
So people can, watch it without the
we
power
don't
going
need
out.
as much. Yeah, so that when we watch movies during a thunderstorm, we can actually finish a movie.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, because again, I want anyone listening to, like, it was a good movie to me. I don't think it quite hits the heights of the first three. But I still, to me, everything after everything you didn't get to see, which is the hard part, is the most interesting part of the movie. And I think the best part of the movie. And I really liked seeing them explore the bunker, finding out that, like, holy crap, apes used to live in cages and all this stuff. And then the decision that Nova has to make of, do I flood these innocent apes so I keep this evil one from getting all the stuff? Um, so then I guess the last question that we'll use to wrap it up, and we can kind of hit on it. Maybe we'll do like a exploration of it. I saw on social media someone brought out that Rise to War of the Planet of the Apes, those three movies, might be the best trilogy, not just sci-fi, not just fictional, might be the best trilogy as far as consistency
No,
goes.
no,
That was quick.
absolutely, because it's just factually incorrect.
If I actually go back. Okay. Do you
You
have any
want to
off
talk
the
about
top?
consistency? The gold standard is Lord of the Rings.
That's what
Fellowship Fellowship of the Rings to the twin towers to the two towers. The to Return of the King, they're the greatest trilogy of movies ever conceived, from world building to execution. Like factually, I will not take
that
that as
is
a
not a
subjective thing. That is a factual observation.
when I was looking at the comments, Lord of the Rings was the top one. So I would say like it's a very interesting spark of a conversation. And I think consistency wise, again, because not many, there's a lot of movies that never make it to trilogies. And a
Mhm,
lot of them, like most movies that make it to trilogies, are already from like established franchises, you know?
mhm,
And so I do think Rise of the Planet of the Apes, like when you're looking at all the movies that make it to trilogies, I think
mhm.
it's definitely on top of most of them. I mean, you think about Maze Runner, like it's obviously better than that. Hunger Games, Twilight, any of those movies, you could say that is definitely better than. To me,
Have you ever seen the Twilight movies?
I've never seen them. I guess I can't really make that judgment. But
You're
just from
missing
what I
out.
hear, don't miss it out. Just from what I hear. But yeah, that's the number one to me. To me, I can't really put it above the Batman trilogy. Like I'd probably say that's just off the top of my head, the Christopher Nolan one. That's
Mhm,
probably my favorite trilogy of all time, just because even the movies that aren't as good as The Dark Knight are still really good movies.
mhm.
Um, and I think they have a good point as far as consistency wise, because there's a lot of movies that have so many up and downs, even Marvel movies. If you look at the trilogies, like the Avengers trilogy, the Thor trilogy, the Captain America trilogy, there's some really good movies, but there's also some like clunkers in there or
I
ones
don't
that
think
just
those
don't
even
really get in close.
I don't think those would even count really as trilogies since they're so interconnected that they
Yeah,
don't
it's hard to
necessarily
even connect
even
them.
connect together one to two to three.
Yeah, to connect them. Yeah, so that's even more reason. So I'm like, because like at first I was like, no, there's no way. But then like when I really sat and thought about it, I'm like, so you're right, Lord of the Rings. Is there any other trilogies off the top of your head? Like, does this one at least rank high up there? Maybe like top five, top 10?
No, I think it's a good three movies, but I thought War was not as it was a weaker link as to Rise and Dawn that I
Really?
don't
Okay.
think I don't think it sits up there. I think because like you're also looking at things like The Godfather or like
Yeah,
Back to the Future.
so like
Like,
Godfather, I heard the third one wasn't great.
but you
I
have the
saw the first
strength.
two.
You have the strength of the. I think
So the
The
strength of the first
Godfather
two carries
Part
them
One is good enough to hold the entire trilogy.
together. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's what he means by consistency too, is because like Lord of the Rings are consistent movies, each one is good. With other trilogies of movies and things, um, you might have the first one that's really good, and then the other two kind of like falter. So even if the first one is one of the greatest movies of all time, it's like if you're looking at like the average sum, like if I was rating on a tomato meter, and I would probably give the first three rises like all above a 90 somewhere around there. I don't
Mhm,
think Kingdom quite hits there. I think I'd probably put it like 80 to 85 range somewhere around there. But like if all of those are 90 plus, like that's a lot of consistency. And there's very few trilogies. Again, I haven't seen part three of The Godfather,
mhm.
and I never finished part two, which I really shouldn't say like on a movie podcast. That's a it's an
But
admission.
even I don't know. I think I would take things like Toy Story. Toy
You
Story
take
1 to
Toy Story
3,
1 to 3 over.
I think are better. I prefer them as movies to the trilogy like of Planet of the Apes trilogy we just had. Yeah, I think I would. Heck,
Okay.
I would probably take the Oceans 11, 12, and 13 over
With the Planet of the Apes, all of them?
over Rise, Dawn, and War. I would take Oceans 11, 12, and 13 over those movies.
Because that's one that I saw as well. And I was surprised that like there weren't a lot of comments saying like the Batman trilogy. Because I'm like, that's the one for me that just like sticks out. That's like this is not the best. But again, maybe he posted it just to like, for clout. But I
Yeah,
will
dude, it's the
say,
internet. What do you you're
yeah,
gonna see every opinion under the sun.
I just thought it was interesting because like again, compared to a lot of trilogies out there, and I think it's because like, we got the Star Wars trilogy, the sequels, and
Mhm.
everybody is mixed over those. There's no way that like to me, this trio is way better than the trio of Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker.
Hmm.
Um, and that's yeah. So I think like when you compare it to a lot of trilogies that we've gotten recently, you could kind of understand it because I mean, when did Ocean's 13 come out? Is that back in
Uh,
2011, 2000, a
yeah, I
while ago,
guess they're all like mid 2000s movies.
mid 2000s movies? Okay, yeah.
I
So
can.
maybe best trilogy since 2010 or something. Wow, I don't know.
Ocean's 13 was 2007.
2007. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe we can't say. So does it help sci-fi? Sci-fi? Because I mean, Lord of the Rings is fantasy, right? Toy Story is animated.
I mean, I guess,
Oceans
but at
is
that point, it's just like by default. It's like just
yeah,
trying
because
to
it's
find a
not really
category to fit it in.
to fit it in.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I think it's solid, but I don't think it's an all-timer for me. Because
Yeah. Okay.
for me, for it to get to that point, I have to have some kind of emotional connection that I just didn't have with this trilogy. I liked it. I liked it, but I wouldn't say that it resonated with me to some deep emotional level, whether
Yeah.
it was just for pure fun and enjoyment, or whether it was for, like themes that hit me in a interesting or unique or new way that I've never thought of. I don't think I got any of that to make it an all-timer. I just see a very solid trilogy,
Yeah.
solid three movies.
And I think
But I'm not
that's
I'm not looking for more from that.
right.
Just to be
Yeah.
clear, that's not a dig. I'm not looking for Planet of the Apes to fulfill me to any
To
deeper
be
way
that.
for art.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the thing is like we don't get like it's so sad, but in Hollywood, you don't really get a solid trilogy of movies very often. So I
Mhm.
think he just thought of it was like, wow, this trilogy is really solid, and just didn't really like sit down and think about like some of the great trilogies that have even come like a little bit before it. So I think that's just like a greater sign of like how far like what we get from Hollywood now. That like
Mhm.
it almost seems like it could be because it's such a solid trilogy, but like this should be like this like the rise through war standard should be like the standard of movie. Like if your movie's not as good as these or as consistent and solid, it's not really going to be a good movie. So anyway, I
I
just
will
thought that
say
was interesting.
all of that will be moot when Denis Villeneuve releases Dune Messiah, and then we get a Dune trilogy, and
I was
then
gonna
that will
say,
be the factually correct answer.
and it will overtake for sci-fi, and that will be yeah. I was like,
That will
because
be
Dune
it.
hasn't even had a chance to.
We haven't
Uh,
even got a three yet, baby, and it's already the best trilogy.
I love how you said that so confidently. Just like wait till we talk about Dune
Wait till
Prophecy. Did
can't
you watch
wait.
the trailer? We'll have to do an episode on the trailer at some point, but this episode has already gone on long enough. So we will sign off here. Thank you guys so much for listening to us talk about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Overall, definitely go see it if you haven't seen it. I think it's a great film. And honestly, if you haven't seen War of the Planet of the Apes or any of the other ones, you might even like it better because you won't have
Mhm.
all these unanswered questions. So it's again, very good movie, very solid. Happy that I went to go see it. Please go see it. And we'll catch you guys next time. Next, what are we talking about? Oh, next week is going to be a very, very special episode
I cannot wait.
because we are actually talking about one of the, now, this is an actual fact, one of the greatest action movies of all time
Hmm.
in Mad Max Fury Road. It's in prep for Furiosa.
Now talk about a top fiver.
I mean, when I say greatest, like this is a movie that film students study. Like we study this movie, okay? So we will talk about that next week. And we will see you guys then.
See you then.